Yo, happy Friday, everybody. Happy Venus Day. We're about to get into a good ass conversation. Wait for Eliott to come on in. There we go. Hello, 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 hello. Thank you. Thank you. We got our Jenny Aniston, J-Lo look going on today. We don't know which one, but you know. All right. We'll wait for Eliott. Today we're going to talk about no more fake ass healing, okay? We got to get the girls and everybody together today. All right. One more time. Third time's the charm. Come on, Eliott. Come through, come through, come through. I'm accepting it. Ay. Instagram sometimes is just so boo-boo caca. I keep saying. Ay. There we go. Look, is the connection shorting because you're like in the tropics right now?
I am. I got my young trap witch energy here in Miami. I just saw like an iguana, like must have been 3 foot long, like climb up a tree and eat a lizard. It's a vibe.
Listen, 2 days ago, I posted a message on my page that Spirit said people need to get out into nature this week. And one of the things I said was pay attention to the animals because the animals don't ever lie. So I'm going to need you to go look up them iguanas and them lizards afterwards because they got a message for you.
I bet. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. Great to be here. Here we are. Can you see me and hear me okay?
I can.
Great.
Yes, I'm so excited to get into this topic. But for those of you coming in and not familiar with what's going on, for the past 3 Fridays, Eliott and I, Eliott who's in men's work and I who's, I'm in all people's work, but predominantly women, we decided to do this collaboration of topics that are important to us. And also they were very spirit-led. And so the first Friday we talked about, mommy and daddy issues. Then last week we talked about people pleasing. And today we're going to talk about no more fake ass healing, which for those of you who follow me knows that I don't hold my tongue when it comes to none of that shit. So we're going to go all the way in today.
Love it. We're here on the bay.
On the bay. So I actually, within the past 10 minutes before we came on, I was like, Spirit, give us the direction where we start today. And the first word we got was patience.
Ooh, love this.
Patience. And I think I'll go ahead and, start us off is that, we have seen in the past 4 years, 5 years, it's about 6 years now. In the past 6 years, I want to say we've seen the spiritual world explode on the internets. And when I started, creeping into the field in 2016, 2017, it was popping, but it was still a little underground.
Big time.
But in the past 3 years, we have seen an explosion of people awakening, people coming into the field of becoming spiritual practitioners or spiritual entrepreneurs, because that is a term that people use now, spiritual entrepreneurs. And although it's a beauty to behold, there's a really dope quote that I love that's from the movie The Unholy. And in the movie, it says, every time God sets up a church, the devil sets up one across the street. So although I love what's going on, I think this topic is so beautiful because we have to understand on this journey, it's about duality also. And just as this is a beautiful thing, this is actually a really fucking scary thing too, because people are out here getting lost in the sauce.
Oh yeah, not to mention, the word that came into my mind is like predatory lenders. You ever heard that term in banking? It's right. It's like when they exploit people that they know can't pay them back, and like they're just going to be in debt to them forever. I think a lot of people have maybe been caught up in some predatory lending in this space because, as you know and I know, this isn't about, all right, I've been a teacher and a healer for 4 years. This is about, I've lived my entire life up to this point and probably a bunch of lives before this. And here's how I'm going to leverage all of that to support you. But I was feeling your hit about patience. So I have a couple things to share, but if you want to maybe just have an at bat just around patience, we can start there.
Okay. So I feel like this goes on two sides. People who are on their journey without any intention to service community, but
Mm-hmm.
also people who have the intention of servicing community. And I really think that, and I talk about this often, I only really started walking towards this path wholeheartedly 2016, 2017, because I was one of those people that I didn't want to, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I was going to be a fucking spiritual practitioner for a fucking living, I would have told you, go somewhere else with that bullshit. It was unfathomable to me. Like, what are you talking about? And I always tell people, like, I was on this like real basic bitch shit. Like, I just want to live my life. I just want a man. I want to go shopping. I want materials. Like, so I was just like, that was the last thing I was thinking about. But somehow the tower moments in my life kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me towards this. And, although, like you said, I had to now realize where I'm at now, like my whole life has been training day for this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's where, when I could finally look at my life objectively, I was like, you know what, maybe I don't feel prepared for this, but maybe spirit has been preparing me all my life with all this like messy ass shit that I've gone through. So
Yeah.
therefore, I think really the resistance was imposter syndrome coming into this. And I found that on the path that many of the people who often have real authenticity around stepping into this work, we do have imposter syndrome, because just
Yeah.
like the craft, I love all the girls love the craft, honey. Like Sarah was this organic, natural born witch who didn't really want the power for egotistical reasons. She's just like, I guess I'm getting dragged into this. But then she realized, bitch, you a chosen one and you really have to pull this out. But she was overcoming a lot of imposter syndrome because Nancy was that bitch over there who was like, bitch, I want the power. We gonna summon in Manon. She had no reservations. And like, Sarah said in the end, be careful you don't end up like how Nancy ended up. And that has been a part of my mission and my motives since coming into this. Like, if we're going to do this, let's do this with a lot of authenticity. And I've been really blessed as a practitioner who has a mentor and who has elders, that I had elders who have a lot of integrity, and they held me really accountable. And I think that's what's so dangerous about what's happening on the internet, is because certain people who are leading large groups of people, they have no accountability, they have no soundboard besides their ego. They're calling their ego the ancestors, they're calling their ego spirit. And then you have a lot of people, because they trust that someone is growing a following, someone's getting attention, or maybe they're getting a temporary satisfaction of money, that these are people that are worthy to follow on their path. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the best pieces of advice that my padrino, my mentor, gave me in 2018, I remember he sat me down, because like 2018, honey, like a bitch was starting to feel herself in these spiritual shit. I was really accepting this role. And so he sat me down one day, because he would often see like my little photo shoots. He said, let me talk to you. He said, by all means, I love this energy that you're channeling. I love that you've created the trap witch. The trap witch is you. It's facets of you. It is you. He said, but don't forget your covenants. And what he meant by that is, he said, if spirit brought you to this path, you have an obedience and a discipline to always check in with them, with what you're doing, and making sure you're in protocol, you're in practice, and then above all, you have a covering. Because some people don't realize, if we're getting into, you know, modalities such as like traditional African religions, part of the reasons why we make these initiations and we make these pacts with the spirits is that we have an element of covering and protection and accountability to check in and check with. So he said this quote to me. He said, I want you to grow on Instagram. I want you to be a queen on Instagram. He says, but don't fuck around being a queen on Instagram and miss your calling to be a queen in real life and a real queen in this world. And he says, a witch with no broom does not fly. So he said, you know, the broom is 12-12, as we say. He said the broom is the foundation. It's your integrity. It's your core values. It's your discipline. It's your accountability. It's your covering. And I remember at that time, I was hearing it, but I was still like, man, we got shit to get to. We got shit to get popping. And I remember going into my 1-year initiation, and spirit slowed me all the way the fuck down from what I thought I was doing and said, bitch, be easy, be patient, honor your covenants with spirit, work on your character, work on your integrity, because there were times where, if I can admit, the power gets to you. When you start generating a following, you know, and this is beyond what we do. This is people with congregations, people with supporters. When you start playing with that power with people who trust you, you create a mob. And you know what I was starting to realize is, when I was getting attacked, it's easy to send your mob to go do some dirty work for you. And when I was getting attacked at one point, I said, you know what, I'm just going to tell my people, go wish them love, spread love. That's what a real mob do, right? But what I even realized was that was a waste of energy, because sometimes the attacks you get are not even about being attacked. It's just a test of your confidence. It's not mistreatment. It's a test of your character to see what you're going to do with this power. So, you know, at times when we get into this shit, we get excited, we get fanatical, we start, you know, feeling ourselves, but this isn't a race. You know, this isn't a race. This isn't a competition. And if you're in service to yourself just for your healing, or if you're in service to your community as a leader and a healer, you really got to slow your ass down and remember the tortoise and the hare. What happened in the end? Feeling yourself can go left real quick.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a thin oxygen supply, because as soon as you show up different, or someone misconstrues you in this hyper specific way, that's it. Then the mob just comes in the other direction, right? Towards you. I feel called to speak on something, which is like, you know, I think people like us, we're in a very unique place. And you and I actually talk about this a lot offline, which is, you know, we're in the spirit realm. We're in the path of divinity. We're in the path of service, but we're also having fun here in the 3D, right? I'm wearing a Supreme polo. I'd like to buy another too, you know? And like, I think what makes this kind of world so interesting is that we are conduits for like a new way of explaining this information, right? Because when it's just out here in these like old traditional paradigms, a lot of people don't see themselves reflected in the work, right? Like, I remember feeling a lot of pressure when I got into this. I was in a pretty like heavy Buddhism curriculum for my first couple of years, went like twice a week to meditate with a teacher. And I was like, is this wrong? Like, should I have no desire and just like, you know, like not want anything and teach for free and live off donations? Spirit was like, fuck no. But like, I think what we're trying to do here is teach the work and do it with integrity, and also preparing people for the fact that like, this is not some bullshit like snake oil, pay me $100 and like manifest your husband kind of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, a lot of people get a very bad taste in their mouth when you say that you're a healer or that you're a coach, because a lot of the industry, right, not the community, but a lot of the industry sells these like, oh, you just got to do this, this, and this, and then like ba-boom, 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 you know? And it's like, those programs, I guess, can be cool if you've never done anything before, but I think that, you know, what we're sort of here to do is prepare people for the long haul, you know? Like, even I get guys that come to me and they want to coach, and I'm like, listen, you know, I am your guy for like the next 6 months. Like, I'm here in the trenches with you, but we're going to focus way more on 1% better every day that are going to lead to those huge breakthroughs, rather than being like, all right, man, next week you're going to like quit your job and fucking join the circus or whatever your dream is. You know, again, I think what we're both talking about here, hit the camera, is unrealistic expectations that some teachers in this community place on either themselves as an ability to, as a person who can heal, or on their clients to be like, you can do this, you know, you can do this. I'm not trying to like diminish anyone's ability, but I just think that unless you're very discerning, there's like a big cash grab energy that's like going on right now,
Oh
right?
yeah, we've seen this cash grab for ages. You know, when I first moved to Georgia, I went to this church, and you know, there was literally, they were trying to fund for a new building, and they spent an excessive amount of time during every sermon. We could call it manifesting, but they would spend an ungodly amount of time asking for money, specific prayer for the building. It was a lot. It was just a lot. And I think sometimes, like with stuff like that, it's like, can you just fucking say what it is? Y'all want to build a new fucking church, run a GoFundMe, people can put it in. But it got to the point where it was coming off ingenuine, the way that they were, you know, putting this into the service every week and putting a whole lot of emphasis on it. And we see that in a lot of community, because, you know, I live in Atlanta, and, you know, we have our Creflo Dollars, we got our TD Jakes, and there's an industry that before, you know, our industry has really exploded, that we've seen what we call these super churches, right? And sometimes people assume that because something is larger, because it has more to show for it, that it is more authentic and it's the way. And the truth of the matter is, when I was awakening, I said, there's no difference between going to church every Sunday and going to a fortune teller every Sunday if you're not going to do the fucking work, if you're not receiving the message, and if you're not being connected to your own divinity and to God in some fashion.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the thing, to go back to what you said about the duality of the journey. This is something I struggled with when I started awakening, because just like I told you, I was a girl who liked a lot of very worldly things before I went through my awakening. And I had this struggle of like going really deep into like my spiritual practice, and then like crashing hard and wanting to like avoid it. And then I finally realized, I was like, well, what if I can do both? And honestly, at the time when I started my practice and my business, I wasn't seeing a lot of people doing both. I was a very, you know, material girl. I'm just going to call myself that. I'm a material girl. A bitch loves her wig. She loves her makeup. She likes her clothes. She likes nice shit. I was a material girl pushed into this work, and I felt like I had to give it up. So for me to go from sex work into healing work, and then seeing a lot of people saying like maybe the way I was living was not the way. I mean, and we see this all the time. We see people say, you can't be spiritual and reach your highest enlightenment if you're not vegan. You can't reach your highest spiritual enlightenment if you shake your ass. You can't reach your highest spiritual enlightenment if you're going out. They're telling you all this shit when everybody's journey is very individual.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
And this is the thing, you know, although what I love about what's happening, like you're saying, we're people who don't have to give up a certain aspect of the beauty of our 3D existence, we still have to be mindful because that is happening. Have extra discernment. This is where the MLMs, the spiritual entrepreneurs, the people have snuck into these modalities, and that's where it gets tricky. And I tell people, it don't take nothing to just say what the fuck it is, but it becomes dangerous when we start mixing these things and to manipulate. And that's what you said, it goes then where it's fucking predatory.
Yeah, and it contributes to what we're experiencing now in the culture all around, which is like this fucking cult mentality, you know? Because when I was getting prepared to have this talk today, I was thinking, okay, well, like, what does Spirit want me to communicate? And it's like, just tell them what fake ass healing is and like what not fake ass healing looks like, right? And I was like, yeah, like you were saying, if people are telling you that you can't be saved, I'm Jewish, but I know that that's like a thing, right? If you can't be saved unless you're vegan or unless you're celibate or unless you're poor or unless you're not doing this, that shit straight up is a cult. The purpose of a fucking guide and a coach is to create more possibilities in your life, more avenues, more inclusion, more things that can coexist, not less things, you know? And I think a lot of people, right, they get on their high horse and they're like, this is it, this is my program. You know, I wrote a blog post about this a couple of days ago, which is like coaches, like sports coaches, right? They don't make the players fit into their program. They design their program around the strength of the players.
Period.
That's why coaches can win with all different kinds of teams.
Period.
Right?
Period. You know what? I'm going all the way the fuck in today. I'm gonna have no filter. You know, this is where, you know, a lot of egos come in with people. You know, I've had a beef with quite a few people on the internet. There's one healer in particular who said, I'm not taking people who are under 26 anymore because you don't have the maturity to handle me. You can't take my... Bitch, how about you learn to fucking teach people better? Again, like sometimes we have people who make fucking excuses for their shortcomings because you're not prepared. You are not prepared for this role. And instead of humbling yourself, working on your craft a little bit more, and there's a different, I mean, yes, there are people who can have preferences of the type of people that they want to work with, but don't put people down for your shortcomings where you can't step up to the occasion.
Yeah.
I've had people from 16 years old up to 70 years old, and I can hold space for all these people. And this is not a competition, but stop putting people down and making them feel less than because your insecurities are showing.
Mm-hmm. And people forget that, like, doing what we do in forums like this is very, very different from sitting with someone and holding space and being in a coaching dynamic, you know? And I think that within that, the way that you just buckle up to be on Instagram every day is going to be a lot different from how you approach a session. And this kind of ties into what we were talking about last week, which is that people need to realize that healers, we're people too, and we have levels of access, right? So when you're all the way the fuck out here, Joe Jerkoff on the internet, we owe you a lot less than person who's way in here inside the circle of like, we have a formal relationship and we work together. And again, this is part of this whole kind of like mass media dynamic that we're trying to be nuanced and subtle about, which is that like the person that you see broadcasting to all these people can be different and will be different from someone that is in a more intimate space. And so I think people come in through these enormous filters thinking that it's going to be this like one-on-one thing, and like it's not. We can't do that for everybody because we're having boundaries.
See, it's exactly what you're saying. It's real different when you're sitting by yourself and the only thing you're hearing is your own goddamn voice. As someone who can come on a live and I can sit here and talk by myself for an hour, I know it's easy. But the truth of the matter is that exactly you're right. Sometimes why it doesn't translate, why people don't translate over into collaborations, why people don't translate over into being able to hold space for people personally coaching. I pay attention to shit like this, you know? Sometimes people thrive on the things that they can just offer without human interaction, because the truth of the matter is they don't really care to hold space for people. They just want to fucking hear themselves.
Yeah, it's like their version of their TV show, right?
Period.
Here's my TV show starring me. This is my life. Check out my house. Check out my ocean view.
Right? Welcome to the spiritual version of Cribs. Do you like all the things that I've accumulated by, leading the flock?
Well, right. I mean, I think, again, this is really where the empathy and the lived experiences of the teacher comes in. And this I feel like I'll say it. It's like, this is sort of the make or break moment for anyone watching to figure out if this person is for you. Is like, you have to really slow down and be in your discernment and tune into like the actual energy, the actual content of what is being shared, and see if it's for you. I think this industry gets such a bad rep because, look, people are having a hard time, right? I spent a lot of money when I was suffering and I didn't have shit to my name. I was super vulnerable and wrote checks to a lot of people thinking that was going to be my way out, you know?
Listen, someone just said it's Hollywood, not healing. Hollywood healing.
Hollywood healing. Yeah, nice.
So I want to tell you this and this is why, I'm just going to give a transparent moment now. Like, and I think we're gonna get into more of this next week, because I think our topic next week is talking about envy and jealousy, or just feelings of like that. So, I remember being really committed to my work, and there was a time where like I was like, why don't I get featured? Like, I was having those feelings. I was like, why am I not in Cosmo? Like, I even had a Playboy article that was coming out. I got cut from it. Like, these were things that my ego wanted. And I was like, Spirit, why don't I get the feature? I'm like, I'm doing this great work. And I realized sometimes when I actually sat down and looked at some of the articles, I was like, this shit's stupid to me. Like, this is not really about what the healing is. This is cute. But some of this is not in alignment with my work. And I tell people this is like, it's frustrating because we are living in a time where spirituality is getting really exploited. That's why we're seeing it everywhere. But at the same time, like, again, people are awakening, and there are people who are going to step up. Yesterday, I made a post about a bunch of girls came out the witch closet this week that are celebrities. We had, Summer Walker coming out. We had SZA coming out. We have all these girls who are in the industry who are coming out and saying, I'm making a return to traditional African practice. And I think that's great, because I think we do need these people who influence the culture to be mass activators. But what is tricky is sometimes is when we make things too Hollywood, it goes to I can never say this word, sensationalization, and it goes to exploitation. Look, a few years ago, I had an opportunity that I know I manifested. I always said, I want to heal the love and hip hop community. Then I had the producer of Love and Hip Hop ask me to do a show. And I had to look that woman in the face. I had to say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Because the things that she was asking me to compromise in order to be on TV, I could not take it just for a check. Mm-hmm. And my spirit guide said no. And I think that's what's tricky, is that sometimes when we are on the spiritual journey, like in the healing journey, everything you ever wanted is going to come to you, and you're going to have to pick your discipline over your ego. And there's an awesome quote that Witch Dr. Alex once posted that said, ancestors, forgive me for the times I wanted to sit at tables that you would have flipped. Yeah. And it's not to say that we can't have these opportunities, but we have to ask, what's the compromise? Because a lot of times we lose the way. Like you said, I'm obsessed with cults, okay? I've watched Wild Wild Country about Osho. I've watched The Way Down about that Gwen lady. If it's about a cult, I'm going to watch it. And a lot of these people, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to give them their flowers where they deserve them. A lot of these people do start off with good intentions, but the
Oh yeah.
road to hell is also paved with good intentions.
It's, you know, when we're lacking, when we feel as though we're lacking in external things, right? Again, predatory lending. When we feel like we don't have enough money, or someone who loves us, or the career that we want, or the house, right? We're going to go to someone who says, I can give that to you, right? That's like, that's an easy transaction. But when you say to someone, I abandon my instincts and don't love myself enough, right? That takes time. That takes someone to really be here and to challenge you on your bullshit and to cheerlead you and to just walk you through so many aspects. What are you doing now? What did your family do? How are you going to show up different, right? Like that's not like sit down and fucking splash this water on your face and hold this crystal and, you know, hope that, you know, it's going to walk through the door. And again, you know, like, I also just want to really empathize. Like, I went through a hard fucking time the past couple months, and I noticed in me a big energy where, like, I just really wanted to be saved, you know? Like, I was just out of anything that you could be out of. I felt like I was out of it, and I wanted to be saved. And I understood that, like, you can have faith, but like as soon as you put the energy out of like wanting to be saved, I feel like you open yourself up to so many other things that could potentially, if you're not in discernment, really F you up.
So yeah, we want, when we want things to be our savior, that's when all the things come out the woodworks to tempt you. You know, there's a really good quote that you know, when I was awakening and I was going through like the height of my fucking depression when I was getting divorced, I started watching Joel Osteen every morning. And then when I got tired of his sermons or I ran out of them, I started watching his dad. His dad was a little bit different than him, but I remembered something that he said one time. He says, the devil don't gotta get you to do nothing. He doesn't make you do anything. Only comes as a slight fucking persuasion. You know, and so that temptation, understanding temptation on the road to healing and to ascension and enlightenment. And so look, and sometimes we get tempted, we fall down, we fumble, we make a little, not necessarily mistake. We might have to have another trial and error period to have more data collection. But that's the time when we go into desperation where we can get tempted. And, you know, if we are being transparent, like I even remember during the pandemic, when the pandemic started, right? I saw all these healers that were like, oh, we're gonna, you know, we're gonna put our prices down, we're gonna make it really accessible, we're gonna, because people are, and I asked my guys, I was like, do you want me to do that too? And they were like, no. And if we're being honest, you know, for some of us, although this is our path and this is our mission, it is also our bread and butter. It's the way we eat. It's the way we take care of ourselves. It's the way we take care of ourselves to be able to show up to do this work, right? And there's times where that shit is fucking slow. There's shit when the money might not be flowing. And sometimes that doesn't always mean rush to produce, rush to create more, because that's another thing that a lot of us ancestrally are overcoming is survival and not giving ourselves rest. So sometimes in those moments, spirit's like, bitch, take a break, rest, go outside, enjoy nature, just relax. And those are the times sometimes you might go into overdrive. And there's been times I said, spirit, do you want me to do that? They're like, no. But what does it look like to sit for 2 weeks in faith where your bankroll might not be coming in like crazy, and to adhere to that obedience? And I think that's why sometimes when people have a really genuine connection to spirit's gonna disappoint you. At first they're gonna fucking make you mad, and then they're gonna make you understand.
Yeah. Well, again, right? That's when people, I had two things that came out at the same time, so I'm trying to sort them out. Go ahead. Spirit's gonna make you mad. Spirit will make you understand.
Yeah,
Oh, I
first
have.
spirit's gonna make you mad, and then they're gonna make you
Oh,
understand. It's like
oh.
sometimes we're like, why the fuck I gotta wait? Back to patience.
Okay, now I got it. I got it. Okay, right. This is it. If you want to know what fake ass healing looks like, fake ass healing looks like someone who is going to tell you that you don't have to give up anything and that you're going to get it all, right? Anybody who is not putting some kind of a sacrifice into the equation, I think is trying to make something out of nothing, right? Because even at the most baseline level, I feel like when you're doing this work, you are sacrificing at a minimum your comfort zone to be able to expand and explore and do things differently. So when someone comes to you and says, you can have it all, just give me $9.99. You don't have to like give up anything, right? It's like, that to me is like an instant red flag, you know?
Listen. I think the word sacrifice wouldn't be so scary if we understand that sometimes sacrifice is just about prioritization and reorganization. I'll give you an example. Based on my natal chart. I'm a North Node in Pisces in the 8th house, right? A lot of spiritual shit going on there. Meaning my South Node is in Virgo in the 2nd house. Maybe my last lifetime on a day-to-day basis, I was out here getting to the bag, getting to the money, not putting my health first, just doing all of that. That means this lifetime, that doesn't come first. It doesn't mean that I can't have it as a reward of my discipline to my mission this time around, because I am a Taurus midheaven, right? I do believe in the balance of, you can have nice, beautiful shit and still be spiritual, but it doesn't mean that we're sacrificing one for the other. We're making sure we have our priorities and our organization straight. And you see, that's the thing. Sometimes people want the gratification without the reorganization or the prioritization of the shit that's throwing them off, the shit that's imbalanced, the shit that's getting in their way, right? And I'm a strong believer that you can have it all. I am that bitch that says I can have a career, I could be a wife, I could be a mama, I could be a material girl and a spiritual girl. I believe I can have it all. But there are some seasons where one outweighs the other. And it doesn't mean sometimes it's completely off the table. It just means one thing is on the front burner on hot and the other's on the back burner on fucking low. That's it.
Also, do you want to be with a healer or a teacher that hasn't struggled, hasn't given up things, hasn't walked through it to like be where they are today? That's the other thing, right? Is like all these people that look great on paper and they're fly and successy and the whole shit, that might be a result of their process. That might have been what got them there. But if someone has not opened themselves up to all the things that happened beforehand, I would say that maybe they're not quite in a position to be at the front of the classroom yet,
I was having a conversation yesterday with a Santero. His name on Instagram is Newtono. And I told him I was going to quote him about this because we were talking about the path of Santeria, which is a really fucking hard path. My padrino always says, Ocha is one of the best practices for your life if you can survive it. And that's not to scare people. That's just to know that you got to be about that life, because the readings, you can't hide your faults, your flaws, your shadow work, the things you need to work on, the things you need to prioritize, the things you need to give up. You can't hide that shit from the Orisha and the ancestors, which is why a lot of people walk away from that. And one of the things the guy yesterday said to me, because we are moving into a new direction in Santeria and Ocha, because we are seeing a lot of the people who are getting initiated are people who are already doing different things in the world, who just need integration on another level now to reach their highest potential. And one of the things that he said to me was that people have to recognize that, oh my God, I want to pull it up. He said, okay, hold on, y'all. He said, OCHA ain't just for struggle, it's for living. Mm-hmm. And I think, he said that really goes across the board with religions, period, religions and practices. These things are not meant so we stay in this like forever suffering or punishment or whatever have you. And so we can live our life to the highest of our fucking potential and get the things we want.
Yeah. So this is really funny. I deal with this all the time doing men's work, because if you're a dude who grew up in this culture, right? Obviously you, for the most part, grew up like being taught to suppress your feelings, being taught to like that your emotions don't matter, being taught that if you're struggling, you're bad or you're a failure, you're a loser. All this is to say, when guys come to me to be coached, generally speaking, like they've seen some shit and they're like not in like a super happy place. And every week I have to explain to them like, listen, I'm going to walk you through this discomfort, but I swear to you, it is to shepherd you to the other side. Like the point of doing this work is not to be miserable, is not to be stuck within a healing cave your whole life. By the way, that's another thing we should maybe touch on is like people that kind of sell this like addiction to fucking working on yourself as part of their program, right? Hashtag maybe a little bit narcissist.
So, what's funny that you say about that? So, you know who Doreen Virtue is?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for those of you who don't know who Doreen Virtue is, Doreen Virtue was that bitch. She was that bitch in these spiritual streets. She used to design all the fucking tarot and oracle decks. She was getting buku money off of this spiritual shit, okay? Just facts, right? So Doreen had another awakening, and she was like, Jesus done came to her, and she's out. She's going back to Jesus. So she's like one of these New Agers return to Jesus. Now, some of the things I don't agree with her, but there was a post that she made that is kind of true that does speak to what you're saying. She was saying that in the New Age community, there's this constant like being critical of yourself to the point where every day you have to wake up and work on yourself. So there's like a list of 20 things you have to do every day, and there's this constant like you're striving for this level of perfection that keeps you in this like really harsh place against yourself. And the truth of the matter is some of those things are just could just be labeled as self-care, a part of your daily rituals, whatever. But yes, there are times where we can on this journey get addicted to like the sufferer side of ourselves. And I've been there. Like I'm like, at what point now am I going to just like embrace the new me and not have to like be in this constant penance of like, oh, but like, I'm like, okay, it's over now. Let's move forward.
That's it. That's the thing, right? Is that beware people. It's just like the pharmaceutical companies. It's like beware people that want to keep you in an in-between of like, you ain't dead, but you're not healthy.
Listen. And you know what? I only recently got to this point, if I'm being honest, like when I started going out with my dude, like he's a Taurus, like he's really in this world, he likes his shit, he's not like spiritual, like he's not. And I thoroughly believe spirit brought me this type of man to pull me out of the work sometimes, because that shit is boring. If I would have gotten with a spiritual dude, we'd probably be up in the house all day with our crystals and our books, and everything has to be. And so I was so grateful because I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. Spirit brought me this person who was like, bitch, can you like just come have fun? Can you just like, so what I started doing was when I started going on trips, I started leaving my fucking tarot cards at home. And if I remember, just because you're in Miami too, I remember in 2020, I think I went to Miami, and when I go on trips, y'all, I mean, clearly have you not noticed, I'd be like dressing up and fucking feeling myself. The other side of Trap, which comes out, she wants to show up and show out. So I had this lady leave me a comment, and she said, I was in Miami, done up. She's like, I miss the old trap witch. And I was like, bitch, this is me too, though. This is
I'm
me too. And I found at times people get triggered when they see me having fun and living my life. And and I think that sometimes that can be triggering to people. They're like, do they think that you have to be in this constantly suffering and humbleness? No, a part of doing all this fucking work is to have the things that you want. And so what I recognize is I had another lady one time say this to me. She like, I remember one day I uploaded a selfie and I really didn't have nothing fucking deep to say that day. And she chastised me for it, and I could recognize that. She was projecting because she felt some type of way. And I said, are you really fucking mad because today I was feeling good and looking good and chose to upload a selfie and not say no deep shit? And she's like, get over yourself. I said, so what the fuck is the problem then? Because this is the problem that you're stating. And we have to say this and be honest, because this is a part of the healing journey. Nobody has to be in this constant fucking head in the book, head to the sky all the time. Like if we're looking at like the nodes, right, of Sagittarius and Gemini, if someone has that Sagittarius placement, yeah, they're in their monk on the mountain philosophy, all these things. But also Gemini, the Gemini aspect of things is also get in these streets, be amongst the people, talk with the people, because also a part of being a spiritual person is just letting your essence touch people daily. And if we're in these streets, sometimes people will meet us as we are and then experience us from who we've become from our journey.
It's like, it's crazy because we're like the fucking mutant children of the new age, right?
Yeah.
It's like we kind of don't fit in anywhere because we're pioneering this new version of like the work, you know? And I think that, again, it's like the cult shit is just people that want to control everything and make it a specific way and say, again, which kind of fits into like the colonizer stuff that you talk about a lot, which is like, it has to be this. And if it's not this, then you don't belong. Or like, hey, we're right. Our team is the good team. And these other people are not worthy of respect because they're on the bad team, right? They're like they don't have any crystals and they don't have any altars and they're not paying for coaching. Like that's the bad team, right? And so that's why, again, I think that you have to be very disciplined as a communicator, talking about Gemini rising over here, right? You have to be very disciplined as a communicator to show people that it can be this and it can like also be this. I'm also thinking, you know, I came up really heavy in the punk scene because I was like a weird teenager, didn't like nobody. And so those are the folks that I gravitated towards were like punk rockers and skaters and hip hop heads because they were the most open-minded. But I got dismayed when I got into the scene because it was like, you can't wear that. That's not punk. And I was like, what do you mean I can't wear polo? Like, says who? It's like, who says that I have to look dirty because I'm a punk rocker, right? Or who says that I can't listen to, you know, like wimpy music and also like just bop to Mob Deep. And so, right, it's like part of the work, I think, and where maybe people, I think, can benefit from coaching is like, we're just here to unlock the genius that's already inside of you outside of the programming. And people on Instagram, healers, whatever you want to call them, you know, spiritual entrepreneurs, people that want to give you more programming, I think you have to be really like, gotta really slow the fuck down because, of course, you know, like those people are the most, you know, they got so much fucking pizzazz and it's so easy. They're here to get you hooked.
What you said about, you know, the dress code is something interesting. There's a really good quote that was floating around Instagram that says, she doesn't look like a healer. And then said, it's because the universe is looking for healers, not actors, right? And so I think what's really interesting is, you know, understanding what your artistry and your skill and what your cachet is. You know, when I started walking towards this path, firstly, like when I remember when I was going to launch my website, I was like, well, what should I put on there? Should I put like that I sell candles? Should I put that I sell like oils? And I had to really check myself. I was like, bitch, you don't want to do that. And it's no shade to who's good at doing that and meant to do that, but there's a lot of people doing what they see as popular and not because it's aligned with really who they are, their path. So I remember being like, no, you're good at talking, you're good at writing, you're good at communicating. That's going to be your power. And as I walked towards the path of Santeria and I got the readings and I had more and more readings, they were like, bitch, all your power's in that motherfucking tongue. To the point where I'll share this very, you know, intimate part of my journey. Like in Santeria, they take away foods from you sometimes. Again, right, back to discipline. Sometimes they take certain foods, certain colors, certain things away from you. So much that I can't even eat a tongue. So if I want some damn cow tongue tacos, I don't eat them. And for me, it's like, why would I eat and consume all my power? That's where all this power lays. And so a lot of times when people come and they're like, well, I have to do this because that's what all the girls are doing. And that's where you're going to get fucked up. If you just want to do what everybody else is doing just to fit in, sometimes you're never going to find your highest potential. And again, you don't have to put on a costume. When I first started, I did all the little witchy photo shoots. Like I did, you know, the big snake shit. I did the graveyard shit. But I found the utmost of my power when I was stripped down to myself. And then I asked, who the fuck are you really? And what do you bring when you have none of that? I started wearing the crystals. Crystals, most times, they won't stay on me unless I wear them. So unless I'm wearing crystal jewelry, I'm going to lose them. They just repel from me. And what I learned early is like, I just don't think I need them. Even after I initiated and I crowned, I found myself wearing my spiritual necklaces and alekis less and less because they don't define me. We don't need the costumes to prove our worth. It's cute. It's not to say don't have fun sometimes, because yes, have fun. But understand, a lot of people, they just see things on the surface, and just because the cover of the book looks good doesn't mean that it's got empty pages.
Yeah. Well, you know,
marketing,
again,
right? Back to marketing.
back to marketing. I was just gonna say is like, you know, if you were selling a particular product, right, what would you want? You would want it to have the kind of biggest impact on the most amount of people, right? And so going back to what we were saying before, if it's building patience, if it's creating discipline, if it's learning how to live with, I don't want to say duality because I don't really believe in duality, but if it's learning to live with being multifaceted,
Yeah.
right? All of those things, they take deprogramming, they take time, they take commitment, you know? And again, I'm not shaming anybody that has a course, you know? I look forward to selling mine one day. But I think that, you know, this kind of fake ass healing industry that we're talking about is like people broadcasting like, you don't have to give nothing up, but like ultimately, if you want to be like me, do this. And I think that someone that's maybe a little bit more ascended would say, do this so you can be more yourself.
Listen. Again, this is why it's so important to recognize when a leader is projecting a personal opinion as the doctrine.
Cult.
There are some people, cult, period. Yes,
that's a cult. That's a when your idea, your particular idea is the way that everyone has to be. It doesn't matter if you're saying veganism or bacon cheeseburgers. That's a fucking cult. I have to do this, and so do you, and no one else can be different. Cult.
And you have to watch that, because watch people who, when they, you know, there's a disagreement, they put you down, or then they push their agenda harder. Look, I have tons of people who don't always agree with me, and I try my best to just be like, look, I'm not knocking you for your opinion or what you believe, but I will protect my space, because why be here with things that aren't benefiting you? If it's not for your journey and you don't agree with it, don't come over here making everybody else uncomfortable who wants to be here. Go somewhere else that's for you. But you know, there's people who want every single last fucking thing that you post to resonate with them. And again, this is another part of fake ass healing. A lot of times, I posted about this the other day. I said, I am so sick of y'all hoes telling people that if this resonates you, yes, or like this, like, okay, you're trying to run up your algorithm. It's a part of marketing, right? But not every post is supposed to be a sign, because I'm tired of seeing people saying, oh, this post is, every last post on their page is a sign. How the fuck is every last post on your page gonna be a sign, ho? How? How, Sway? Most of the times it's
people
not.
what they want. Again, we are here, people that are here, right, to coach, to be leaders, to be communicators, to be pioneers of this new wave. Again, like the mutant children of the new age, right? Like the X-Men or the X-They. It's like, we're not here to give you what you want. We're here to challenge you so that you can be yourself, right? To deprogram and chip away all the shit that isn't there. I always tell somebody when we start coaching, it's like, I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but through questioning and listening and being here with you, I'm going to give you the, the chisel. I'm going to give you the chisel that you need to like sculpt out the statue on your own, you know? And I think, again, it's like, there's just so much camouflage of like, please like me. Here's a sign that your man's going to come tomorrow. Claim it, right? Like, here's, grow your business overnight. Claim it. It's, I
Like,
mean,
you know, there's,
but I mean, oh man, that's like jerk off stuff. That's not
listen,
real.
you know, like, I understand that there is certain energy connected to certain things. Like, we know that over time, bay leaves have been, you know, aligned with prosperity. But don't play with vulnerable people that they gonna put a bay leaf in their wallet and they're gonna get a paycheck tomorrow. And
Right.
this goes back to something that my padrino said. He said, you can get all the orishas that you want, but if you don't really understand what they're saying to you, you don't really commune with them to go in the direction you need to go and really listen to what you're being transformed into, all you have in your house is a fucking rock collection. I'm just gonna tell y'all people, for those of y'all who don't know, all that's in those pretty fucking jars that we have are a bunch of rocks that we pay thousands of dollars for. And it's not because of the money or that. It's about the lessons that we get through communing and coming to the mat and hearing about ourselves and having to make sacrifices. For every goddamn bead you see someone have on their neck, you don't know what blood, sweat, how many hours they was on their damn knees, naked in front of other people, carrying heavy shit to the beach, going through the mud, doing shit that, quite frankly, most of us don't want to fucking do. When I came to the path and they started telling me to do certain shit, I thought that shit was stupid. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought that shit was stupid. But then I understood with time and discipline, accountability and consistency what it was really about. You know, one thing I want to touch on before I lose it, because I thought about, please watch out for gurus and people who pedestal themselves as the one.
Oh, I mean that. I mean
Supreme syndrome.
Yeah.
I'm the only person. I'm the one. Nobody was like, you know, again, like I said, I don't give a fuck. I've seen a healer talk about, I made inner child healing popular. Bitch, inner child healing was around before both of our bitch asses was born. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Shut the fuck up, please. Shut the fuck up.
You know, again,
and y'all really seeing the shadow side of me today, because I'm fucking tired of this dumb shit.
Yeah,
I'm tired of this dumb shit.
It's funny too, because like
these narcissistic ass bitches. I'm sorry.
It's funny too, because men's coaching has such a different, it has a different flavor and a different vernacular, but you see a lot of these same things, you know, over and over again, which is basically like, like, don't give shit up. Don't really change. Do this thing that I'm selling you, and it's like going to be different, right? This is why, again, as healers, I think that you have to go down into the well for such a long time. You really do have to have a dark night of the soul, I think, before you can step into this as someone who's on the other side of the phone, right? Because think about it, when someone comes to you and they say, Trap Witch, I want a boyfriend, right? And imagine if you spent that whole session just talking about boyfriend, when it's really, why don't I love myself?
Period.
What things have happened to me in the past that have made me afraid of being in partnership? What are patterns that I have in my partnerships that I might need someone like yourself to call out, because I can't see them lovingly, of course, because I can't see them on my own, right? This is the thing, is like, you know, you might just be the coach, or you might be the healer that just helps someone from this point to the next point, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to be everyone's everything, come with, like, I'll get you a car, I'll get you laid.
Listen, you just said such a good ass point. That is such a flag of a lack of self-love, when you want to be everyone's fucking everything. That is a lesson that I had to learn coming into the community. Some people aren't gonna fucking like me, and that's okay. I'm not for everybody, but there's a lot of people that mask that it's okay, and then they fight with people because people don't like them, or people are calling them out, and it's showing the insecurity of, you want to be everyone's everything, but you really have a problem with not being everyone's everything. That's a codependency. That is a codependency. So I mean, where's your self-worth really at?
And let's be real. If you're in integrity and someone says, I don't fuck with you, and you're fake and you're whack and I hate you, have a terrible haircut and blah, 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 right? Like, you just say, all right, thanks for coming. Keep it moving.
Yo, I had someone the other day in my comments was like, because I think I told you about this last week, like, I must have accidentally blocked her. She might have said some dumb shit. I just block people all the time. Came back from another page and was like, see, you didn't know I had another page. This is why people in the community don't trust you. So bitch, you were cool with me till I blocked you. Now you're telling me nobody trusts. So why were you following me? At the end of the day, an insecure version of me would have went back and forth with her, and I just laughed and I just had to block. It's like, I don't care. Like, I don't know you. And here's the thing. We have to be mindful. Like, there's parts of our ego that's healthy, because I think, like, if I hadn't integrated my ego to be, like, not bothered by that type of statement, but at the same time, like, as a spiritual leader, especially, you do need people. You do need your community. You still have to be humble enough, because people who book your services or people who support your page, they do help create your wave here on this earth. So we have to be mindful, because we do need people. And that's why I believe, have healthy boundaries. Don't put up with disrespect, but still be conscious of your humanity towards people. You know, I've seen people talk about, oh, you can't afford a healing session with me because you're broke. Why the fuck would that person want to work with you when you're already demeaning them as human beings before they even have pressed the book button? You know, and to me, that shows a lot of intentions at times. But you have to be mindful of these people who pedestal themselves as the one and the way. Like, honestly, I fuck with Christ a lot. Like, I have a lot of Christ vibration when we look into my readings, my numbers, all these things. So not from that place of like how hypocritical Christians come from, but like, I just fuck with dude and the way he moved. You think Christ wasn't really out here being like, I am the one in the way, follow me or I'm gonna fuck you up. He's like, all right, bet. You don't want to follow me? I'm gonna keep it moving. I gotta get to the next town. I got my homeboys. You ready to roll out? Okay, we got our hoes. We got our, okay, let's go. Like, it was really a heart level. And even people that were his adversaries, although they made him fucking mad, right? I'm a thorough believer in righteous anger because he wanted justice. But he wasn't up in everybody's face, demeaning them. Why you don't like me? Why you don't? So you also have to have compassion for people and empathy for people, and also know that in healing, whether you're someone who is healing just for your own personal reasons or healing to be a practitioner, you really got to meet people on a heart level. You got to not look at people from down your nose. Yeah, the only person, and we don't know how this existence works, you know, the only person that has any power to really look down on us and see what the fuck like that is spirit and God. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think we can be above situations or discerning of what we give our energies to, but be mindful of how you position yourself to think you are above something. Because that's when spirit comes to you, be like, oh, you want to do this on your journey? All right, let's bet. Spirit will humble that ass quick.
Clap you down. I was 2012 is when my awakening starts. I was capital F, capital M, feeling myself, right? Up in the Wall Street Journal, wearing my snazzy Tom Brown jacket, king of downtown for a day. And then Spirit was like, boom, you got no job. You better figure out who you are outside of your fancy friends and your nice suits, my man, you know? But I think, again, you know, it's like, to me, this kind of ties in a little bit last week to the people-pleasing conversation, because this is like, you know, as teachers, realizing who gets access and who doesn't get access, I think is real important. And a real teacher, I think, will be very, very disciplined in like who gets closer and closer to their energy, right? And I think that within that, it's also a matter of like reading between what you see and what you feel to figure out what your vibe is with somebody.
Yeah, you know, I like what you said about that. I can see both sides of that. Like, because you said be mindful of how they position themselves to allow people close to them. I do think that I have seen people take advantage of that, where they're like, oh, it's $500-$600 to have a reading with me. It's because they're really not doing readings, you know, like, let's just call this out. There are a lot of people who pretend they are booked and busy, and then they backtrack on what they're saying. They put outrageous prices to make themselves seem important and unaccessible, when most of the time they are super accessible because they're always in the mix. They're always live. They're always doing, it's like, let's just be honest. I think that people are allowed to put a price on their worth. We have to make sure that this price is reflective of just making sure that your time and energy is reciprocated for what you need to service to people, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I've kept my prices fairly accessible because I still need to live and I gain experience, so I have to pay myself back for the money that I put out for my education. But at the same time, keeping a price point that's accessible, but still a little bit of a coin, because it's about the investment in self. What I give to someone took years for me to figure out. So I'm giving you my experience and to help you with your journey. And I also, for myself, I never assume someone's going to talk to me again. I do my best of what I can do within that time, because I will never assume you're coming back, because I don't keep people dependent on me.
Yep.
That's another thing to recognize. People who love to keep people dependent on them create codependencies. They use dark psychology, the 48 laws of power, to keep people groveling, to keep people thinking that they're the fucking one and only, that they're the Messiah, the only way. And they play with that information and they gatekeep that information. And they also find ways to add coins to that to keep them in a comfortable position, so that you're always giving them your money for the answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what I love about this community that we're speaking to here is like, if you're tuning into something like this, obviously like you're in the loop, you're in the path. And so I think it's just a matter again of like, as a business owner, as a teacher, as a healer, like I feel like helping your audience or the people that you communicate with establish more discernment with each passing day is one of the best things that you can advocate for, right? Because when you're teaching people to be like, let me see how this lands with me. Does this resonate? Does this not resonate? You're actually giving them the gift that goes way beyond what working with you or working with any one person could ever look like. 111 as we speak. And again, you'll notice that in people who want to hook you, want to take advantage of you during a time when you're feeling down, it's like they're trying to show you their way, right? Again, it's the coach that makes you want to fit into their system rather than the coach that wants to bring out the best in their players by looking at where they're at. That's another whole thing, by the way, is just like, anybody that is going to diss you for where you're at is not somebody that you want to be, investing your
Oh
spiritual,
my God. Like,
right?
oh my God. I've seen that so much. Dissing
Yeah.
you for where you're at. Again, I think that especially
Woo! Got 30.
compassion, empathy is so important, especially if you're someone who's going to be a spiritual leader. Empathy and compassion, because a good teacher is going to be patient with you. I always tell people you learn a lot more sometimes. Yes, discipline is good and being like the rod of correction, but sometimes not everybody's going to be receptive to being insulted in order to learn. um I can totally agree with that. One thing I want to touch on um, is companionship and collaboration, right? Um, I find that sometimes people are not fully integrating the healing work by then reintegrating themselves into society. And it goes back to what we were saying of being the person who's sitting in the house behind the phone and only hearing themselves and not collaborating with their community or interacting with their people. And again, not to go back to Christ, but Christ, that motherfucker was amongst the people. Being amongst your people and your flock is very important. I used to hate that, going to church and there's a pastor there where like he only came in to say his sermon sometimes and go back out, and he might shake a hand or two, but he's out. He's not communing with his flock. His flock can't. It's not to say you need to be completely accessible, because I thoroughly believe that, back to what we said, there has to be a balance in life. Nobody is obligated to day and night show up to be in service to people and their work. We need balance. But still, like, how can you say you're really integrating all of your ascension if you're still having a problem struggling being in this 3D existence, which incorporates other people?
Yeah. Gotta have some people skills in this business, yo.
or again, like, if you just think you're doing all this healing work to avoid people, I tell people all the time, I was like, that's cute. You want to go live off grid and be by yourself, to
Yeah.
me, like, I think that's cute. It works sometimes, but sometimes you have to ask yourself, some people are avoiding. What are you avoiding? And I think that, this pandemic that we had brought up a lot about leadership. This is a topic that someone had brought up to me before, and it was just clear where, and we're not judging, but when things got really hard, seeing who really showed up, because healing journeys, being a spiritual leader, it's not about only when times are fucking good. What about when shit is hard? And that's when you really have to lean into the rock of discipline, not just be in your emotions. And I always say heart, action, and discipline are so important on this journey. Heart, action, and discipline.
We're gonna make it.
Oh no, I can't hear
Bless
you.
the phone to How about
Oh, and
now?
then also I can go to about 145. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, as long as my phone doesn't die before then, we're good.
Okay, I have mine plugged in right now as we're talking. Okay.
All right, that's cool. Don't worry, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. If worst
Okay.
comes to worst, I'll make a run for the charger.
Charger.
And
Okay.
anyways, um, just taking a beat to get on the discipline and strength tip.
Yeah, I mean, I think this still goes back to what we were talking about with a lot of the things that have become popular and cool on Instagram and Twitter, where it's like, oh, let's make this cute thing so we could get some money, so we could get a boyfriend, so we could do like one of the things that my one of my mentors said to me when I came to Santeria. He's like, so many girls come to this shit for dick and money, okay? But you have to have character development. You have to have discipline. And one of these quotes that my homegirl shared with me one time, she was like, before Oshun makes you happy, she makes you strong. And so I think that's a universal message from spirit, is that sometimes that's why shit is so fucking hard, to make you understand the spectrum of emotions and triggers and how your nervous system reacts to certain things, so that you could become stronger, more
Oh yeah,
disciplined, and more heart-centered. Because your mind, if your mind ain't strong, and you haven't, integrated certain things, sometimes you're going to be triggered, and you're not going to use your intuition. You're going to use that lizard brain. You're going to
yeah,
use,
right.
or the things that you, so fear, learning to work through fear, anxiety, and our emotions is really important. Because if we don't learn to process our anxieties, our emotions, our triggers, the things that disrupt our nervous system, it's going to cut you off from your consciousness.
Yeah, and it's gonna be it's gonna be something that's gonna keep looping until you learn how to work with it, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
this is why people get so bummed out, is because they're if you don't know how to address when things are bad, if you don't know how to address when you're in an anxious, needy, vulnerable place, then every time it comes, it's just going to attach back to your lizard brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we get into these victimizing stories, right? Oh, this always happens to me. Why am I always broke? Why can't I meet a nice man? You know? And again, this is part of why the fake ass healing can be challenging, is because unless people are helping you get a little bit further down the well each
Mm-hmm.
week, you're still just at the top level of like, I'm looking for a boyfriend, right? But whatever, as we all know, when you get that boyfriend, unless you've dealt with the other stuff, it ain't going to be resolved.
Or it's not, or shit's not going, shit's not going to last. I just was
Taking you with
posting.
me to get plugged in.
Okay.
It's fun,
I
right?
was just posting this last night, and this is not the scenario for everybody, but on my journey, a lot of times I prioritize committing to a man in order to go to the next stage in my life. And so when I started really going on my journey, I really heard spirit was like, bitch, you need to commit to yourself and marry yourself before we really give you what we want for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my year in white. For those of you who don't know what that is, in Santeria, we take a 1 year long commitment after a 1 week initiation of being in a room for a week, sleeping on the floor, and then you proceed to, wear white for a year. You don't go out at night. You don't go to a lot of places. You don't do a lot of things. And so I met my partner probably like in the ninth or 10th month of that. And so when I met him, a lot of things that I was used to doing, I couldn't do. And I had to explain to him I had this commitment that I had made. And I remember one day, when we were probably like 2 months in and I had like a month left of it. And he was like, man, this is hard. I don't know. I said, well, sir, go ahead about your business. Like, if you can't do this with me for the next 15, 16, 18 more days, I've been doing this shit for a year, then I don't know what to tell you. The old me would have like begged and pleaded. And I was like, sir, I got a commitment to uphold. And so, you know, I had I had a relationship with spirit. And because I had that covering, that standard, that relationship with spirit, that person either had to meet me at that level or kick rocks.
That's it.
You know? And so that's the thing. When we are looking like to manifest are these equally yoked relationships, each individual has to have their own commitment, self-care, and covering. And that covering can benefit you as an individual, and it can benefit you as a couple. And that covering also benefits every person you come into contact in your community. So that person has to understand your self-care, your commitments, your journey, and how it ties into your overall life.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I think it's unfortunate. I think it's really sad, and I've hated seeing this over the past couple of years, that the spiritual community, especially us spiritual girls, we're getting made fun of a lot. Like, I was like, who fucking ruined Grand Rising for us? We got people making all these memes about like, these are the girls to run away from, it's a red flag. But there's a truth to that. The reason why these are things are memeable, because there's a lot of people who are doing fake ass healing, covering it with the spiritual badge of ego, and there's still a red flag to another person because you're not really healing.
Mm-hmm. This is also, you know, on the men's tip, it's a little different because a lot of men's work comes through the lens of like corporate leadership and like life hacking, you know, this idea of like work on yourself so that you can be more efficient. And I was like, man, this work is not here to make you a more efficient capitalist, right? Like this work is here to make you a loving person and a person of integrity, you know? And I think that, again, it's just such a funky time, right? Because it's like, here we are earning a living, right? With a following and doing a lot of shit in the 3D. But I love what you said about people that try to put like my man Ish in New York City, he came to this phrase that I love. He said, it's an adorned truth. So it's like they take the truth and then they put all kinds of like other stuff on top of it to make it look like what you want it to look like.
Well, that's why
truth.
That's why, you know, there's the buzzwords. And honestly, I'll go ahead and I'll put some of the buzzwords out there. Some of the best buzzwords, especially in the spiritual community: masterclass, sacred container, funnel. You know, a lot of these are marketing words, which by all means, there's a lot of people who do have integrity that can use these words, but you get used to seeing everybody kind of sounding like parrots because they think they've hacked the blueprint of how to, like you said, be more efficient capitalists. And sometimes it's coming off unauthentic. I forget what the graphic app is that everybody use. I think it's not
Canva?
Java.
Canva.
Everybody's using the same damn colors, the same. It's like, where's your individuality? And see, that's where you could get lost in the sauce because you're following the blueprint of someone else's plan because you think it worked for them, and spirit wants you to do things differently. I had a client who came to me. She had just spent $5,000 on a business coach to help her with her spiritual business.
Yeah.
We get to the session, we tap in, we do a reading, and spirit is telling her to do things in the opposite of what the business coach told her to do. And she's like, I'm a little disappointed because I just spent $5,000 on this business coach. I said, no, listen. By all means, now you have that as a resource. Just know that can't be the overall blueprint. It's like building a house. At the end of the day, most houses need a foundation, but maybe the way you do your walls will be differently. Maybe the way you do your roof is different. And again, this goes back to what I teach people a lot of time. A lot of people have great credentials. I call this the noodles. I call this the noodles and the sauce. The sauce is your own. Now, it doesn't mean that most spaghetti sauces aren't fucking tomato based. But then we're like, okay, maybe that's an ingredient I need, but not everybody needs the same ingredients.
Right. Well, again, this is the cult thing. Is like, we're here to, I think, create more possibilities, more ways that you could live, more ways in which you could be happy, right? And when people say, this is the sauce, and this is the only way, I mean, I'm from Staten Island, which is a very tomato sauce and like, you know, pizza culture. So a lot of people will come, and this will be funny for anyone not from New York, but like, you know, as a New Yorker, if you see pineapple on pizza, it's like you walk out the restaurant because you're like, that ain't pizza. But if you go to California where they have all their wacky pizza, they'll be like, this is the pizza, right? So again, I think it's a matter of like, how do we together as a community celebrate individuality? How do we celebrate everyone being different, everyone having different goals, a different way that they do it, you know, a different spin on like what the work is. I think also, by the way, a lot of coaches, it's that lack mentality of like, I have to be like these other people because they think that if they don't plant their flag, there's not going to be enough for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing, and also, you know, like you said, like sometimes people want to hop on everything and ride the trends because, like you said, they think there's not going to be enough for them. When if you're not checking with spirit about what they want you to do, you can lose your plate hopping on a trend that you saw someone else doing again. You know, I've had people at times like be upset with me where they're like, Trap Witch, why aren't you talking about this? And I was like, bitch, because I know my role. I know my lane and I know my role. And I don't talk about anything, firstly, that I'm not well versed in, I don't have experience in, and it's just not my part of serving in the collective. And I think, you know, people have to know their role. They have to know their lane. It's okay at times to be inspired. You know, there's times where I see some shit that I'm just like, fuck, that looks like a mess. And I actually do want to tap in and chime in on that. And I had to check someone's bitch ass the other day about this. Like, just because someone chimes in on a topic that you were talking about that they disagree about doesn't mean they're piggybacking or clout chasing. It means someone has an alternative perspective, maybe based on their experience, to bring to the fucking conversation. But at the same time, there's certain topics that you don't have to chime in on. Someone asked me one time, Trap Witch, the rainforest is burning. What do you want to say about it? First of all, that's not my lane. I'm more the person who helps create and cultivate people who are not assholes who burn down the rainforest. I'm not going to go put my body on the front line of the Amazon. That's not my role. So knowing your position and your role is crucial, and knowing it's okay sometimes to not know some shit about some shit. If I don't know some shit about some shit, I'm gonna pass it on to someone who does. But again, back to when someone who wants to know everything, be everything.
Exactly. This is the thing, is like, hey, motherfucker, it's not even about you, okay? So just learn when it's about you and when it's not about you, okay? And then B, within it being about you, I would say advocate for yourself, show up for yourselves, show us your genius, and like whoever's meant to like that flavor of sauce, they're going to find you. You know, again, it's like people try to put so many formulas to this work because it's a little bit dicey as a business person to be like, look, I can't really guarantee anything except for that I'm going to show up for you, and that if you do the work, I'm going to meet you every step of the way. But like, as we all know, this shit is crazy. We'll talk about this when we do our spirits time is not your time talk.
Yes.
Right? But like, it's magic, right? It's the ether. It's different dimensions. It's spirit. It's things that like we tune into, we commune with, but we don't control this shit. And anybody that tells you that they are controlling it, I think is someone to be avoided.
Listen. My beautiful homegirl, Jade Electra, her page is JADEALECTRA. Kudos and shout out to her. She recently really bravely came forward with a group of other people who left the cult of Bentino Massaro, who Vice has done a documentary on him. And, you know, this is someone that Vice had started investigating because they're like, sir, do you really think you can make it rain? Because he was like, I control the weather. I can do this. And like, it, you know, Vice was even on the, when they were filming it, like the interviewer's like, bitch, sir, come on. Like, you could just tell that they were really trying to tap in, where it's like, sir, like, please sit down and have several seats. And you're correct. Like, there's so many people who have these God complexes and these narcissistic complexes that are really fucking hurting people, you know? And so you guys can check that out. Jade and her friends, other survivors of this cult, have come forward and have started sharing, you know, their testimonies of some of the abuse and some of the things that, you know, happened when they put their trust into someone and were very raw and emotionally available. And you know, you have to look at these high control groups. I'm going to drop a word in there for you guys. Like, there's a lot of these high control groups, these cults, these cliques that are all about control. And at the end of the day, this healing journey is about discipline, but it's about freedom and liberation.
Submission, right? Like giving yourself to something greater than yourself to propel your life. You know, that's why, again, I think people trip when things start to get a little shaky and a little rocky, because we've all been raised to be like this convenience culture where we think that something is wrong if it's like taking a long time or if it's hard. You know, something that I try to always offer to people is like, if it's hard, maybe it's because like you're a pioneer and your voice is like part of some dope shit that like we've never even seen before, you know, as part of something that like has been missing from the world, that like you are going to add to it. You know, your way of communicating, the way that you see the world, all of your experiences, all the things that you've lived through are going to be the thing that help you, bring you abundance, bring dignity to your life, and help other people along the way. Again, I think the one thing that I just want to say over and over again is like, you just want to be really disciplined about who is creating unnecessary limitations. What'd you call it, T? High control situations?
High control groups.
High control groups, right? You want to see people that are taking away and taking away and taking away until you're just like them. Or you want to see people that can hold difference and hold nuance and say, that's fabulous. We have nothing in common. I love you. How can I be of assistance even though I don't agree with things that you're saying, and I don't even have the same set of experiences that you've had? You know, a real G can be in the room with anyone, and through their love, their compassion, their empathy, what they've done on themselves, they can go in the cipher and be able to create opportunities, create possibilities.
That is that Christ consciousness. You know, I love what you said just now about, you know, people going through certain experiences. Like, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I was put into the world of sex work to understand sexual energy from one level so I could come to multiple levels. And recently, I know, like the other day, I made a post about sex work appreciation, and you know, there was someone in the comments who really didn't agree with me. She's like, you know, sex work is soul crushing work, that just like not wanting to hear the perspective of someone who's been in it, someone who's not open-minded, never been in it. So making a lot of assumption on something you have no experience in and you don't want to get well-versed in and actually hold space for people who have been there. I know without a shadow of a doubt that was part of my path, because when I looked back, a daughter of Oshun, a priestess of Oshun, was the one who led me in it. My journey to Oshun and crowning in Santeria and understanding sexual energy on multiple levels, I gained so much more of a spectrum of knowledge because I have been in all these spaces. And sometimes people are like, I've heard people, you know, really put down girls who have been in that space, and they said, well, if you know, you could do what you want to do had not being in that space. And yes, quite frankly, maybe if I hadn't been in that space, I'd still be in this position. But again, you don't know the reason why people gain experiences and data collection in order to deliver their purpose.
Yeah, and also, like, why is someone trying to erase your experiences and all the wisdom and nuances that you took away from that and say that it can't count or that it's not valid?
But you know what? This is why, and I think this is why it's important to recognize contrast, similarities, whatever. Well,
contract.
in 2019, I started getting really pissed off with these yoga hoes on Instagram who were naked in all these positions selling sacred sexuality but putting down fucking strippers. I had really had a fucking enough of these people who were passing judgments on people who were doing essentially the same thing they were doing and packaging it different. And so I remember even seeing like a person who was doing a healing session, and they had a person laying on a table naked. They had them draped like you would have a massage. And what they were doing was they were taking money and they were making it rain into the bowl, and they were calling it a self-worth money manifestation ritual. And I was like, but how dare you bitches put down someone who maybe as they're on their journey to their greatness, their mission, whatever, do the same thing. And because you don't like the way they do it, it's not worthy for you.
Do as I say, not as I do.
As I do. Hey.
Right? Also, again, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, right? So if you see someone coming in high on judgment, high on control, high on I am the fucking person, you know, they're living the rest of their life under those principles as well. You know what I mean? And I think, again, I just keep coming back to erasure of nuance, erasure of experience, erasure of people's backgrounds and what brought them here. I think is like a very slippery and like fucked slope. You know what I mean? I think what we're trying to do is create a wider spectrum of what this work can be like. Maybe it's just you meditating on a Tuesday once a week. That's fine. You know what I mean? One of my great health mentors, you know, I don't want to get too graphic, but I juice, I go for colonics. I'm very particular about what I eat and what I don't eat, right? And 99% of my friends, I don't say anything about this shit. You know what I mean? But when someone comes to me and says, "Hey, you look good for 41, man. Like, what's your secret?" Well, I say, okay, you know, what level of the video game can I share with this person to get them in? Am I going to say, give up all this and go for colonics and be in an infrared and whatever? No, of course not, right? But you might say to someone, how many days a week are you eating fast food? Oh, I'm eating them 4 days a week. I was like, maybe you can try 2.
Yeah.
Right? Those are people that I think are equipped to do this work because you can meet everybody where they're at without judging them and just, you know, take them to their next level of ability.
Absolutely. And you know what I love about that too? Like, I got this hit when you said that, like, be mindful of people who think the universe fucking revolves around them. Yes. You are having experience that's based on your perspective, and yes, the universe is interacting with you. But if you can't exchange energy and integrate the energy of things around you, and you, again, back to thinking you are the only thing that matters, you're gonna plateau.
Okay.
And also too, one thing I want to add in while I'm saying that is that I think at times, and I've seen this a lot, we have to, like, I'm finally admitting this, and I said this the other day, there's no problem. We don't have to be these like pure people that don't dislike things. Like, there's a lot of people I fucking just don't like, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
But still having a level of compassion and empathy, because a lot of times I see a lot of things that are pro something, but if you're still integrating a level of hatred towards things that you're coexisting with, you're gonna reach a plateau. And I see that a lot in spiritual community. I feel like, yes, you can have a preference for who your demographic is, but be mindful how you cause harm to others because of these preferences.
It's the ego stuff and just keeping it. Listen, to show up and do what we do, what anyone does, you got to have a little ego, right? To put yourself in in front of the camera and say, I'm here, what I have to say matters, right? But when that becomes the spirituality, when that becomes the filter through which all the other shit flows, right? That might be a moment to step back and say, am I in communion with spirit? Am I in communion with my higher self? Am I doing this from a place of wanting to be of service? Or am I doing this from a people-pleasing, needy place of, I need you to see me this way, and so I'm just going to pretend that all this other shit doesn't exist, right? And put foot, right? The adorned truth. I love it. Shout out to
You know, it's funny. It
the
was so
adorned
funny.
truth.
It was so funny when you said, you know, when people show up and, you know, that they want to say things that matters. For some reason, like I had this like flashback of The Rock, like, you know, when he's like in the ring on the mic and he goes to be like, ask the person what they want to say. He's like, it doesn't matter. And there's so many spiritual people. Like, look, you have to learn how to discern. Yes, that's my Florida water mic. You have to learn to discern when there's just going to be no common ground. It's just going to be too combative and competitive to make a point versus just saying, you know what? That's all good. I appreciate your sentiment, your opinion, your perspective. I'm sorry we don't agree, and that's okay. That's all right.
It's okay.
But then where the boundaries come, and I tell people like I've gotten into it with a lot of people, and it's part of my path. I used to hate conflict, and now conflict is like, you must meet me to evolve to your higher self. So, you know, when to put boundaries is then when people become antagonizing about proving their point. And I think sometimes as spiritual people, there's nothing to prove. Like you said, like with sharing with your friends, it's like, you don't have to prove to them that what you're doing is better than maybe what they're doing. It's like, do what fucking works for you. People are a lot more teachable when you just set an example and you don't try to influence them.
I mean, I grew up in a household of nonstop unsolicited advice. And so I've become very, very sensitive to this in my teaching. Is like, if someone don't want to know, if someone's not coming to you, say what you need to say and keep it moving, dude.
Consent, right?
Yes, well, that's the fucking spiritual ego, right? Is like when you're trying to offer shit to people who have not consented. Not a good look, bro.
That's the last thing we'll touch on before we bounce off is that, you know, that's why these scammer accounts, oh my God, these fucking scammer accounts. People, I have one page. I've been saying this for 2 years. I'm not saying it much often anymore. I just ignore them because you should know by now. And if you don't know, get familiar with my page. Figure it out yourself. It's not my job to help you figure it out. But these scammer accounts have gained popularity because they see that there's an opportunity to maximize on people who have built a platform. And they know that people are eager for approval. They know that people are eager to be saved. And so you have these scammer accounts that are sliding in, trying to solicit your money and your emotions and your vulnerability, especially because they're trying to get your consent. You know, here's my thing. I feel that people doing the work, put your content out there. Me, I'm never going to beg you to work with me. Quite frankly, if you don't want to work with me, don't fucking work with me. That's okay. What's for me doesn't miss me. But again, we have to stop trying to put things on people without their consent. And as a projector in human design, I've recognized that I can't give anybody advice, no matter how good it is, if they are not consciously or unconsciously consenting to it. And recognizing when someone might not be ready, someone might not want it, that takes a lot of skill and discernment and time and patience to learn.
It's trusting yourself and trusting the people that you bring into your life to be the right people at that time, right? Not forcing things. This is, again, it's like so much of this quick kind of spiritual microwave stuff is like just trying to force it. Guess what? If you're not supposed to, like we were saying before, if this is a phase for you to like learn how to love yourself without money, guess what? That's part of the plan, Holmes. And if this is the time when you need to be away from a partner so that you can love yourself more and develop those aspects of yourself, that's cool, right?
Yeah, someone said, I believe all the scammers are Jehovah's Witnesses. No, you know, they're just people who have, again, people who don't want to do their own work for their own personal journey. So they're maximizing what someone else has done and trying to eat off of it in order to further themselves. Again, that's also a part of someone else's spiritual journey. Why are you scamming people instead of just doing your own work? And I used to love to say that to the fake babalaos that would slide people's DM. I was like, you know, we knock to Ifa. Ifa doesn't knock to us, because that's a joke that my padrino always used to say. He says, in Santeria, we knock to Ifa. It's not the other way around. We're not Jehovah's Witnesses. And no shade to the witnesses. They're great people who serve their purpose in the collective, but that's not how we operate.
Listen, if you're coming from a place of integrity and you're tuned in, the right people come, the right people don't come, right?
Yeah. Opportunist, someone said. Being an opportunist is great when you know you bring something to the table, but not just for the opportunity to maximize without any accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So let's wind it down. Do you have
That's
any
it. We're
last
gonna
words that you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank everyone for tuning in. I feel like there's more of you each week, and it's just such a pleasure to see all these people coming in from all these different backgrounds taking part. My website is the same as my handle, Coaching with L's. So if you're interested, you can cruise over there. Tons of writing, tons of resources, info on how to work with me. Yeah, this was a good one this week. I feel like we kind of took off the kid gloves and just got into.
Look, this is something I don't hold. This is something I don't hold my tongue on, because it is a part of my mission. Like, I am here not to necessarily call out shit, but to just really shed light and give people the option. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Some people's path is to go down getting taken advantage of or whatever. We've all been there. A lot of us have been there. So just providing this information so people can be aware, but then make their own decisions. So the path is going to be different for everybody, but I really enjoy this.
Yeah. By the way, just that's it. I want to do like the Mr. Rogers takeaway, is that the people that are right for you are going to say, you're going to have your own experiences, your own, everything that you've gone through is valid. And like, you have your own sauce. You got your own sauce to make, right? And that's how you probably tell a real one from someone who isn't.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things I said in one of my workshops at the end of last year, I always tell people, like, because, you know, I think it's dangerous sometimes, the toxic positivity of like, everything you've gone through has prepared you. Like, yes, and that's true, but we have to be mindful of how we frame that. I tell people, I'm never here to invalidate your very harmful experiences that you've had. By all means, you're allowed to feel a victim because you were one. You are allowed to feel the spectrum of emotions that are the result of what has happened to you. But at some point, you're going to have to do the work the best you can at the speed you need to, so you can maximize your potential, because you weren't born to suffer. You got a birthright that's so much bigger than that. So I'm never going to invalidate what you've been through, just as I don't expect people to invalidate what I've been through. But we have to know that our birthright is bigger than just suffering, getting taken advantage of, and being hurt.
Just watch the performance. Keep an eye on people that seem like they're trying to portray it a certain way to get you romanced into being on their team, right?
Seduction. That's that succubus. That's that succubus and incubus energy. That's not high priest or high priestess energy.
Right.
Watch out for the succubuses and the incubuses.
Yeah.
And the high priests and priestesses. So definitely. Thank you so much, Eliott. This was so great. You know, I would talk for a whole nother hour if I didn't have to call it too.
Yeah, we'll We'll do a retreat one day. We can just do a whole week, and people will come. We'll make it happen. We'll invite all of our friends. All right. See
Period.
you, T. Thanks
Have a
everyone
good one.
for tuning
Thanks,
in.
guys.
Peace and
Happy
love.
Friday.
See you soon next week.